Chapter 535, Soul Suppression. Whether it was Zhu Moyan who used it first or Qin Lai who used it afterward, neither of them had actually been acknowledged by the bloodthirsty dragon. They hadn't tamed this violent heaven great spirit artifact. The only person it would acknowledge as master was the blood progenitor. The blood progenitor created the bloodthirsty dragon, tempered it with his own blood, and refined it using countless spirit materials. To the bloodthirsty dragon, he was its true master. No one could take the place of the blood progenitor in its heart. Today, the bloodthirsty dragon found out that the blood progenitor's soul had perished, leaving only the man's body. It could smell its master's familiar scent, but it could no longer feel his summons. Yet it refused to accept that as reality. Instead, it decided that it would use the souls of these two juniors who cultivated his master's spirit heart along with their tempered blood to gather its master's fragmented thoughts. If some of its master's consciousness still remained, the bloodthirsty dragon would awaken it. In the bloodthirsty dragon's heart, its master was the only one who was qualified enough to control it, and in doing so, reclaim their former glory. To that end, it desired the true souls of Qin Lai and Zhu Moyan. A seemingly endless amount of fiendish blood energy condensed to form a viscous sea of blood. The bloodthirsty dragon carried its master's body on its skull, roaring amidst this bloody sea thick with the smell of iron as it turned to devour Qin Lai and Zhu Moyan. A terrifying, fiendish aura covered the sky and the earth, enveloping Qin Lai's group. It locked down the area, keeping them completely confined. Every single one of them could only watch as the bloody sea flooded toward them. They couldn't escape this area. Even thoughts of resisting were thoroughly shattered by the impact of the fiendish blood aura. Before anyone could realize it, the bloodthirsty dragon's blood energy permeated their blood vessels and spread across their bodies. Its violent soul had dominated their minds. They were helpless. Ba-dump ba-dump. Ba-dump ba-dump ba-dump. The dull, intense throbbing of a heartbeat constantly resounded like the rumbling of thunder. Everyone's faces and skin flushed red as blood slowly dripped from their eyes. The speed at which their blood flowed within their bodies became 10 times faster than before. This sudden increase in speed made them lose all control over themselves. In the face of the bloody bone dragon's terrible pressure, despair reigned over them. As much as they racked their brains, trying to think up countermeasures, they couldn't think of any. Having consumed a huge amount of the fiendish blood aura within the demon-sealing tombstone, then later finding the blood progenitor's body, the bloodthirsty dragon emanated an invincible, sky-changing, earth-rending power. Who could possibly compete against it? Grim expressions dominated the faces of Qin Lai's group, all of them losing control of their tempers. All they could do was wait to receive the order that was about to arrive. The order to burst into pieces and die. Qin Lai's demeanor seemed especially grim. He stood at the very front of the group. His head experienced the bloody bone dragon's terrible, earth-shaking aura, which had flooded everyone's minds, restrained their souls, and effectively enveloped this entire area. The color of blood had long since filled his mind consciousness. Countless bloody lights even penetrated and flooded his soul lake. Before Qin Lai knew it, a thread of the bloodthirsty dragon's soul consciousness had seeped into his mind and polluted his soul lake. His soul consciousness became a bloody red, and his soul lake changed into a lake of blood. Even his true soul was slowly being corrupted, bit by bit. His true soul had been repeatedly tempered by the power of thunder, a power that could eliminate all traces of evil souls. In spite of that, it paled before this bloody corruption and was powerless. It seemed as if the power of thunder couldn't eliminate the blood energy that invaded his soul consciousness. Qin Lai's heart became heavy as blood energy gradually filled his soul, making him feel as if he were slowly sinking toward an endless sea of blood. He was well aware of how the bloodthirsty dragon's blood energy was dominating his mind and soul, corrupting him. He would ultimately lose all sense of himself and succumb, becoming the bloody bone dragon's puppet. He would no longer have his own thoughts, his own consciousness. He would suffer a fate even worse than death. And he slowly gave in. Whoosh! At that moment, a powerful suction force, one which he himself wasn't sure existed, suddenly appeared in the space between his brows. The two people closest to him, Zumoyan and Song Tinu, could clearly see that a ray of pitch black light had appeared there. In the next moment, a whirlpool that resembled a black hole appeared there, consuming the seemingly endless amount of blood energy that surrounded them. Zumoyan instantly discovered that the blood energy that had spread into her soul consciousness rapidly decreased, as if it were some sort of pain being drained from her mind. Like Kinlai's soul consciousness, hers had been flooded with blood energy. Her consciousness had initially been blurry, leaving her powerless to resist. She had gradually given into the despair. Yet, when that pitch black light shone from between Kinlai's eyebrows, everything underwent an astonishing change. Her blood-polluted soul consciousness quickly returned to normal. The bloody haze in her mind scattered as if a strong wind had blown through, freeing her frozen thoughts and cleansing her blood-polluted soul. In this way, her consciousness became clear once more. Even the dense fiendish blood aura that had invaded her body was quickly extracted. Zumoyan was dumbstruck. She could see wisps of bloody smoke entering the black dot between Kinlai's eyebrows. That black dot was a deep, far-seeing eye. It was the soul-suppressing orb. Boom! Kinlai's mind shook, and he instantly broke free of his powerless state from earlier. The blood that had dyed his soul consciousness had been entirely extracted, and the moment the last of it vanished, he regained his wits. Upon focusing his attention and checking his surroundings, he saw countless bloody lights being absorbed into the soul-suppressing orb and pulled into the vast space inside of it. His third eye, the soul-suppressing orb, unleashed an absolute suppressive force capable of subduing all violent spirits and making them yield. Whoosh! A terrifying suction force erupted from the soul-suppressing orb. The seemingly endless, turbulent sea of blood, the bloodthirsty dragon fiendishly roaring within it, and the blood progenitor's body sitting on its skull. All of them transformed into rays of bloody light that Kinlai's third eye devoured. And they completely disappeared. Only the soul-suppressing orb between Kinlai's eyebrows remained. It shone with dazzling light, traces of bloody rays swimming within it. Song Tinu, Zumoyan, Du Xiangyang, Lo Wochen, Zi Jingxuan, and Pan Kai Anqian froze where they stood. To them, what had just happened seemed like the unlikeliest dream. It was as if everything that had just occurred, the crazed, howling bloodthirsty dragon, the blood progenitor's body atop its skull, and the terrible aura that shook the earth and blotted out the sky, were just an illusion. All because they suddenly disappeared in a bizarre, untraceable way. As a result, everyone felt astonished and confused. They suspected that the bloodthirsty dragon's soul consciousness had created an illusion that tampered with their memories. However, if everything that had just taken place weren't an illusion and was actually real, why would Kinlai possess a third eye? And why was that third eye capable of devouring Blood Fiend Sek's ultimate treasure, the Sea of Blood, and the blood progenitor's body? Just now. Du Xiangyang's voice was hoarse. He looked like he wanted to say something, but didn't know where to start. Was all of that real? Pan Kai Anqian asked timidly, giving voice to what everyone was thinking. I think that everything we saw just now was real. None of it was an illusion, Zumoyan said, gripping the illusory demon orb. Her eyes shone clearly with a strange, bright light. At the very least, the illusory demon orb tells me there weren't any. This news startled the rest of the group. Then everyone's eyes simultaneously fell upon Kinlai. Under everyone's gazes, Kinlai's third eye slowly withdrew into his forehead. The soul-suppressing orb almost instantly vanished into his flesh once more. Kinlai had regained his normal appearance. In the eyes of the rest of the group, however, Kinlai was obviously different from them. Big brother Kin. You're not a member of a foreign race, are you? Pankaj Ankian spoke up again. What in spirit realm was that eye? It's not an eye, Kinlai exclaimed. It's a spirit artifact as powerful as the bloodthirsty dragon. A spirit artifact? One that could devour a heaven-grade spirit artifact like the bloodthirsty dragon? This revelation stunned everyone into silence for a second time. Don't ask. Kinlai sighed. Even I'm not entirely sure what it is. It's occupied the space between my brows for as long as I could remember, but I don't know where it came from or what it's capable of. Do you feel any different now? Song Tin asked worriedly. Has anything changed after that spirit artifact devoured the bloodthirsty dragon, absorbed that sea of blood, and took in the blood progenitor's body? I have yet to sense anything, Kinlai said. His words shocked everyone. Swoosh. As Kinlai's group was repeatedly being astonished, the demon-sealing tombstone, which had been hovering above the land of buried gods, whistled through the air at a surprisingly fast speed. It arrived above Kinlai's head, floating in the air and letting out rays of prismatic divine light as if it were searching for something. It seemed to have been attracted here by the aura of the soul-suppressing orb. Unfortunately for the demon-sealing tombstone, the soul-suppressing orb hadn't taken much time at all to devour the bloodthirsty dragon and everything that accompanied it. The demon-sealing tombstone had detected the soul-suppressing orb's aura, but by the time it rushed over to Kinlai's group from its position above the land of buried gods, the orb had already vanished into the space between Kinlai's eyebrows. Look! It's Deef! Du Xiangyang suddenly shouted. Deef has appeared. Deef, who had vanished earlier, currently sat atop the head of an ancient giant that lay flat on the ground of the land of buried gods. The earth spirit's set of eyes above his own exuded the immense power of earth. RRRMB. This ancient 100-meter-tall giant, which resembled a small hill from its bone position, suddenly sat up. Revolving yellow rings of potent earthly energy appeared around the giant's body. It opened its gruesome maw and unleashed an inaudible roar, suddenly standing up with Deef still seated atop its head. Driven by the power of the earth spirit, this giant was the first corpse in the land of buried gods to stand. That ancient giant's body contains an immense, refined power of earth. Luo Chen cried in surprise. It's like its body were made with soil, as if it were born into this world from the earth itself. The second it detected the strange events occurring in the land of buried gods, the demon-sealing tombstone that had been hovering above Kinlai's head flew away once again. The demon-sealing tombstone shot through the air, seemingly in a hurry to suppress the earth spirit along with the earthen body of the ancient giant that stood up in the desolate plain. It seemed as though the tombstone was trying to prevent an earth-shaking calamity from happening. After a moment of contemplation, Du Xiangyang spoke up. I understand now. He said. Some of the ancient elites buried here cultivated one power, and one power alone. For the seven spirits, all of these elites are powerful puppets at their disposal. The other two Eastern barbarians, that Kading and that Au, probably have spirits within them as well, Song Tinu added, having understood the situation as well. The sharp power of metal and gentle power of water inside of those elites could temporarily prevent the demon-sealing tombstone from discovering them if they too possess their corpses. And things happened exactly as she said. The moment Song Tenu and Du Xiangyang finished speaking, abnormal changes occurred in the bodies of two other ancient elites in the land of buried gods. One was a giant, 200-meter-tall ape. It seemed to have been forged from gold and steel because its body was completely golden yellow. Every hair on its body resembled a golden needle that glittered with a sharp, metallic light. Like the ancient giant, this giant ape was a beast of a bygone era. Both were members of the giant spirit race. However, this giant golden ape was significantly stronger than the members of the giant spirit race that had escaped their seals in the freezing land beneath the Arctic mountain range. Even in death, the violent power of metal that emanated from the giant ape's body seemed sharp enough to pierce the sky. This ancient giant ape clearly must have been far stronger than Mang Wang when it was alive and in peak condition. Along with the ancient giant and the ape, the enormous dragon that the blood progenitor used to create the bloodthirsty dragon was a member of the giant spirit race. During ancient times, the giant spirit race was one of the most powerful races. They were capable of causing chaos that changed the color of the sky itself. In terms of purely physical, explosive strength and potential to wreak havoc upon all living beings in the world, the giant spirit race had always been considered the best amongst all the powerful races. FSSSHHHH. FSHHHH. FSSSHHHH. The melodious sound of murmuring streams came from a graceful woman with the tail of a fish in place of her lower body. This woman was a member of the merfolk, a foreign sea race. She was nearly 5 meters tall and had been dead for many years. A ewe of the black barbarian tribe currently lay on the ground beside that woman. She didn't seem to be breathing or showing any other signs of life. The water spirit had abandoned her and instead taken over the body of this merfolk elite who had been dead for many years, using it as its new puppet. A ewe had fallen, and this sea race elite stood, her body releasing the harmonic sound of hundreds of murmuring streams flowing at the same time. Chapter 536, Wave of Destruction. The earth, metal, and water spirits, which had taken over Deef's, Kotang's, and A'u's bodies, now possessed the corpses of ancient elites and made them stand once more. The ancient giant, giant golden ape, and merfolk woman radiated potent auras of earth, metal, and water. They glared at the blue sky above them and opened their mouths, soundlessly roaring. Boom boom boom. The land of buried gods resonated with a series of tremors. Fissures opened up in the ground as numerous rundown palaces collapsed or burst apart. Sharp golden beams emanated from the giant ape's body, shooting into the sky like a fiery beacon. These beams resembled giant golden swords that pierced into and nearly shattered the mystical fabric that made up the graveyard of gods, creating an enormous hole. The sound of flowing water echoed from inside the body of the graceful merfolk woman as she suddenly began to chant in a soft tone. Extremely far from the forbidden land of ice, countless streams of water shot from the sea of the forbidden land of water several hundred kilometers into the air. The earth, metal, and water spirits unleashed all of their amazing powers, seeking to turn the land of buried gods upside down and tear the graveyard of gods apart. Only the ice spirit possessing Jiayu had yet to take action. No one knew where it was hiding. This shocking commotion made the eastern barbarians, who had arrived beside the body of the arrow god, and Jiayu, who had arrived next to the evil god's body, stop what they were doing. Off in the periphery of the desolate plain, Fengyu, Yu Min, and Su Yan calmly watched the situation unfold. All of them were looking at the demon sealing tombstone. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. Godly chains of light spread from the surface of the demon sealing tombstone, stretching across tens of thousands of meters like strings of glittering crystals. They resembled a rainbow that connected the heavens to the earth. The 7 divine lights of the demon sealing tombstone swept down from the heavens like a whip in the hands of an ancient god. They collectively released a shrill whistling noise and struck the ancient giant, giant ape, and the merfolk woman. Prack prack prack. Sparks appeared on the bodies of the ancient elites possessed by the earth, metal, and water spirits. The overwhelming auras of the three bodies became significantly weaker upon being struck by the godly whip. Everyone fearfully watched the situation develop. The destructive auras of the demon-sealing tombstone and the three ancient elites intimidated them, so no one dared to act recklessly. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. A wave of light rippled outward like a tide in the ocean as the demon-sealing tombstone fought the three spirits. These were terrifying waves of tremendous, refined energy. "Defend against it with everything you have!" Sinew roared. Every Eastern barbarian summoned their spirit energies at the same time. The shields of light that protected each of them instantly lit up, dazzling the battlefield. All of them were able to live up to this point because their realms were strong and their spirit energies were refined. When the shields of light brightly came to life, the Eastern barbarians prepared to defend themselves with all of their might, their teeth clenched. It seemed as if they had transformed into a thick wall of light. Their plan was to work together and create a single shield of light, one they would use to resist the residual shock wave hurtling toward them. However, their resistance was like a praying mantis attempting to stop a wooden cart. It couldn't even withstand a single blow. Crack crack crack. Bang. The instant the shockwave of energy struck the Eastern barbarians, one prismatic shield of light shattered after another. They were as fragile as chicken eggs. Shields of light exploded, and the Eastern barbarians hiding inside each of them broke like the yolk of an egg. They were instantly reduced to pulp. Aside from Sun Yi, Yan Men, Zhang Tangxing, and a few others who cultivated bizarre spirit arts or possessed extremely sturdy bodies, all of the other Eastern barbarians died in droves. Yu. Clusters of ghosts surrounded Jiao as the residual shock wave struck him. He seemed like a god commanding the vile souls of the underworld. He unleashed dark, shrill howls, making the vile souls and ghosts around him go into a frenzy. The instant the energy waves struck him, he released an astounding amount of evil energy that pushed against them and nullified their terrifying force. Jiao Yu panted heavily, his face a pale white. He could be considered to have barely escaped death. On the outer edge of the desolate plain, the ring-shaped shock wave spread outward to strike Su Yan, Fengyu, and Yumen. 5 out of the 10 spatial rings that celestial artifact Sex Fengyu wore on his fingers sparkled with strange lights. A spirit artifact flew out of each one, a shield of flame, a precious set of black scaled armor, an icy blue flag with a phoenix embroidered into it, a thick signboard, and a cold emerald. These 5 spirit artifacts were defensive in nature, moving to form a line in front of Fengyu. They exploded one after another, ultimately preserving his life. At the same time, 10,000 Beast Mountain Yumen instantly took on the form of a beast. The necklace of teeth around his neck released a cold white bony light and condensed into a firm barrier. In this way, he also avoided danger. The Su family's Su Yan, however, wasn't as lucky as they were. She didn't have as many spirit artifacts as Fengyu, nor did she have a tough body like Yumen. Once the 3 profound grade spirit artifacts she did have exploded, her shield of light subsequently shattered like glass. And her body followed suit, breaking apart as well. The terrifying energy shock wave caused by the clash between the demon-sealing tombstone and the 3 spirits spread in every direction and slaughtered more than half of the people that had rushed into the land of buried gods. Qianlai's group looked down at the desolate plain once more and discovered that only a dozen or so people remained. Most of the Eastern barbarians had instantly shattered to pieces in the face of the shock wave. The wave of energy that rampaged through the land of buried gods killed swathes of Eastern barbarians, as well as Su Yan, and passed over the countless remains of ancient elites. However, no new marks could be seen on the remains of those elites. The shock wave hadn't even so much as moved them. They truly are the bodies of ancient elites. Du Xiangyang cried out in praise. Even after being dead for tens of thousands of years, enduring the ravages of time, they still weren't affected by the residual shock wave caused by the clash between the demon sealing tombstone and the three spirits. He and the rest of Qin Li's group still stood at the edge of the frozen lake. They hadn't dared to recklessly enter the land of buried gods, which was why the shock wave that swept through the desolate plain below hadn't affected them at all. "I think it would be better for us to keep watching," Song Tinu said bitterly. The shocking turn of events down in the land of buried gods made them even less likely to be rash. "Sun Yi and Jiaoyu are trying to take the bodies of the arrow god and the evil god," Zi Jingxuan exclaimed softly. The energy shock wave had just rampaged across the desolate plain of the land of buried gods. The demon sealing tombstone and the three spirits had yet to create another shock wave with a new round of combat. This was the best and probably only opportunity for those who had survived the shock wave. No one dared to hesitate. Sun Yi was the first to act. The black barbarian climbed up to the ruined palace where the arrow god's body was, arriving alone at the round altar where the body sat. He fell to his knees and shuffled over to the altar. Then he kowtowed with incredible devotion, using his soul to unleash his reverence and respect. He even muttered words under his breath. Eastern barbarian disciple Sun Yi hereby kowtows and invites our progenitor to return to his homeland. Sun Yi held an enormous arrow with scarlet feather fletching in his arms, kowtowing every time he moved forward with his knees. Mysterious patterns shaped like a golden three-legged bird were engraved into the arrow. It radiated fiery light and exuded an ancient, mysterious feeling. As he held the scarlet feather arrow and moved forward on his knees, Sun Yi kept a close eye on the bow that lay on the round altar. Every time he kowtowed then got back up, he stared at it. The bow that lay there was the sun-killing bow. Sun Yi expressed his devotion by kowtowing, worshipping with his very soul. Using the scarlet feather arrow, an ancient Eastern barbarian treasure, as a medium for his reverence, he slowly made his way to the arrow god. Whoosh! All of a sudden, the sun-killing bow sensed the aura of the scarlet feather arrow, slowly floating into the air and arriving before Sun Yi like a spirit bird. Sun Yi was overcome with joy. Eyes aglow with the light of passion, he hastily bit his finger and dripped blood onto the sun-killing bow. ZZT. The moment his blood splashed against the sun-killing bow, it burst into scarlet flames. A wondrous ripple of energy connected Sun Yi to the sun-killing bow and the arrow god's body. An instant later, both the bow and the body flew into the fiery ring on Sun Yi's finger at the same time. Frenzied glee gushed from Sun Yi's eyes. He immediately leapt from the round altar and yelled, "We will retreat from the land of buried gods for now." He had already achieved his goal. In the meantime, Jiaoyu also took action. Clusters of souls floated around him, his ring radiating eerie, evil energy as he walked toward the evil god's giant body. When he arrived at the evil god's body, a myriad of ancient netherrealm runes flew from Jiaoyu's eyes amidst noises that resembled the cries of wronged souls. The runes transformed into sinister, ghastly faces and streamed into the evil god's chest where its heart would be. Ba-dump! Shockingly enough, a powerful heartbeat resounded from the evil god's heart. Whoosh! A pitch-black ray of light shot from the ebon heart of the evil god, descending upon Jiaoyu's head. Then the 100-meter-tall body of the evil god actually traveled along that ray of light, gradually shrinking as it moved toward Jiaoyu. A dozen or so seconds later, the evil god had entirely vanished into Jiaoyu's body. Chapter 537, Terrible Scourge. Sun Yi had welcomed the sun-killing bow and the arrow god's body into his possession, whereas Jiaoyu had drawn the evil god's body into himself. Upon achieving their goals, both men started evacuating from the land of buried gods as fast as they could. "Go!" Sun Yi shouted. "Return to the edge of the frozen lake first." At his command, the dozen or so Eastern barbarians that had been lucky enough to survive the shock wave from earlier immediately turned around and ran back the way they came. Having taken the evil god's body into his own, Jiao Yu didn't hesitate to promptly leave the land of buried gods as well. Zhang Tangxing was the only one who remained. In the periphery of the desolate plain that made up the land of buried gods, since celestial artifact Sex Fengyu and 10,000 Beast Mountains Yumin managed to survive the shock wave, they now had the chance to obtain the remains of an ancient elite. Unfortunately for them, they didn't seem to be able to retrieve any. Seeing that even Sun Yi and Jiao Yu didn't dare to be greedy, retreating as soon as they obtained the bodies of the arrow god and the evil god instead of trying to obtain more remains, Feng Yu and Yumin forcefully suppressed their own greed. After a brief moment of hesitation, they turned and retreated as well. They had no choice but to retreat because the demon sealing tombstone and the three spirits had clashed once again, creating a second massive shock wave that was about to spread in their direction. As a result, Zhang Tangxing was the only one left standing in the land of buried gods. Zhang Tangxing refused to accept this outcome. Not many people knew about it, but he and his father were the first ones to learn of the location and mysteries of the Graveyard of Gods. Both had meticulously planned for the Graveyard of Gods, as well as the remains of the Blood Progenitor and many other ancient elites. Unfortunately, the most crucial part of their plans, the demon sealing tombstone, had accidentally been taken by Qin Lai. Without it, the greatest flaw in Zhang Tangxing and Zhang Zuzi's plan to dominate the Graveyard of Gods lay exposed. The strength of the earth, metal, and water spirits, as well as the ice spirit's cunning, had greatly exceeded his expectations. They made some of his contingency plans feel hollow and useless. Both Sun Yi and Jiao Yu had managed to achieve their goals. He, however, was still empty-handed. How could Zhang Tangxing possibly accept this? Ha! Ha! Zhang Tangxing heaved harsh, nasal gasps, as if a wild demon that had been imprisoned within him for so long had finally been released. Rays of intimidating bloody light shot from his eyes, making him appear utterly terrifying. All of the Eastern barbarians that had exploded and died as a result of the previous shock wave, leaving bloody pulp on the ground, were currently flowing toward Zhang Tangxing in an eerie fashion. From a high vantage point, the blood flowing across the ground looked like numerous bloody snakes. They writhed and squirmed, forming a bizarre, bloody pattern. Using the true soul as the medium, and blood as the fount of power. Shock filled Zhu Moyan's voice as these words escaped her mouth. He's forming a blood demon. A serious expression surfaced on Qin Lai's face. The blood demon art Zhang Tangxing had executed was slightly different from the one he knew of. The blood demon art recorded inside of the Blood Codex allowed a martial practitioner to use the power of their own soul to gather the blood from a fresh corpse and bestow it with blood energy, giving it strength. This would make a blood demon rise from the gathered pool of blood, one that the user of the spirit heart would then be able to control. When Zhang Tangxing had executed the blood demon art, his hands hung at his sides, blood continuously flowing from the tips of his fingers. Drip. 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 Zhang Tangxing's blood exuded a pungent, iron stench as it dripped into the pool at his feet. The blood of that pool looked as if it fueled intense flames that instantly became violent and crazy. The snake-like streams of blood in the surroundings slithered over, also going crazy. They quickly gathered in the pool at Zhang Tangxing's feet and underwent a grotesque change. Soon enough, a fiendish blood demon that was around 10 meters tall rose from the pool of blood. It unleashed a bloodthirsty roar, emanating an insane aura similar to Jiang Tanxing's. On the other hand, Jiang Tanxing's face was pale as his condition rapidly worsened. Yet his eyes continued to shine with excitement and madness. The same kind of light that shone from the eyes of the blood demon. Whoosh! The blood demon opened its sanguine maw and swallowed Jiang Tanxing in a single gulp. Hai instantly vanished into the blood demon's body. The light in the eyes of the blood demon became creepier and more frightening every moment after it swallowed Jiang Tanxing. Its entire body radiated a terrifying aura that struck fear into people's hearts. The blood demon art gathers the blood of the dead and mingles it with soul fragments in their bodies that have yet to completely dissipate. Although blood demons created this way don't exist very long, they possess terrifying amounts of strength that can temporarily be used to achieve its controller's goals, Zhu Moyan said, her words tinged with shock. The blood demon Jiang Tanxing created isn't quite like the ones that I know of. He seems to have formed a close connection between his soul and the blood demon in order to unleash the power of his soul and blood. She took a deep breath. It looks like he's temporarily merged with the blood demon. If that is truly the case, then Jiang Tanxing has become the blood demon. And the blood demon has become Jiang Tanxing. This way, he'll be able to keep the blood demon around longer. However, once the spirit art runs its course, he'll be reduced to a weakened state for an extremely long period of time as well. The blood demon may even devour him instead. Such an outcome is a huge flaw in this altered blood demon art where the blood demon continues to exist after the user's body has perished. The blood demon looked into the sky and howled angrily. New shock waves of energy spread from the battle between the demon-sealing tombstone and the three spirits. However, when they reached the blood demon, its immense murderous blood aura pushed them aside. By forming this blood demon using unconventional methods, Jiang Tanxing actually managed to forcefully stay in the land of buried gods instead of retreating at the sight of the shock waves like Sun Yu and his barbarians, Jiao Yu, Feng Yu, and Yu Men. However, in order to remain in the land of buried gods, Jiang Tanxing forfeited his rationality and fell into a frenzied state. He was no longer sane enough to think about taking the remains of the ancient elites. Qin Lai suddenly trembled in realization. Absorbing blood is instinct to a blood demon. He yelled. Jiang Tanxing created the blood demon in a way that it would instinctively drink as much blood as it wanted. It'll start sucking the remaining blood from the nearest body of an ancient elite. The moment he said this, everyone's faces filled with shock and terror. It's going to drink the remaining blood inside the bodies of the ancient elites? Pan Kai Enkian's eyes opened wide with fear. All of these ancient elites were existences that once dominated the world. If any blood remains in their bodies, it would definitely contain tremendous amounts of energy. Here, at the bottom of the frozen lake, the land of buried gods has kept these bodies from decaying. Understanding flashed across Du Xiangyang's face. Their strength, and even their refined energy, may have been completely preserved. This could also mean that every single body of every single elite may still have blood inside of them. What will happen if the blood demon that Jiang Tanxing created drinks all of that blood? Luo Chen asked. Only God knows the answer to that question. Zhu Moyan exclaimed, a worried look in her eyes. If that happened, Jiang Tanxing may never awaken, and an extremely ravenous blood demon seeking to drain the blood from every living thing could be born into this world. Such a blood demon would ultimately tear its way out of the graveyard of gods and charge into the land of chaos. Qin Lai said grimly. That could spell the end of the land of chaos. Zhu Moyan smiled bitterly. In that moment, everyone realized that, if they allowed the demonified Jiang Tanxing to continuously absorb the blood of the ancient elite corpses in the land of buried gods, it could grow into a never-ending evil capable of bathing the world sanguine. Not only would it entirely consume Jiang Tangxing, it might even flood the 9 great silver rank forces and any other living thing in the land of chaos with a sea of blood. Qin Lai. An indifferent voice suddenly rang out. Can you help me find Jiao Yu? Jiao Yu appeared out of nowhere like a lone ghost, standing 20 meters away from Qin Lai. He didn't take a single step closer. The ice spirit corrupted Jiao Yu and dominated her soul. I hope that you will be able to help me expel the ice spirit from her body and get her back. If possible. Jiao Yu didn't say anything more. He just watched Qin Lai silently. I currently don't have any idea how to go about doing that, Qin Lai said. After a moment of thought, he asked, how much do you know about the land of buried gods? The Zhang father and son pair brought news of the graveyard of gods to the eastern barbarians, Jiao Yu answered nonchalantly. According to my knowledge, when Blood Fiend sect perished thousands of years ago and those who cultivated using human blood were being hunted down, Zhangzas and a group of trusted aides escaped to the eastern barbarians. Jiang Tangxing was born of his father's union with a Scarlet Barbarian woman. Since the blood of the Scarlet Barbarian tribe flows through him, the Scarlet Barbarians consider him half Scarlet Barbarian. When the hunt for Blood Fiend sect in the land of chaos died down and was no longer carried out with such fervor, Zhangzas took Jiang Tangxing back westward and they hid amongst celestial artifact sect. Both of them know the secrets of the graveyard of gods and the land of buried gods better than anyone. Zhangzas was the one who told the eastern barbarians to get Thunderbloodwood in preparation for dealing with the Thunder Spirit. He also told them about the pure soul springs hidden inside of the Thunder Lagoon. He also revealed the fact that both the ancestor and the ultimate treasure of the eastern barbarians, the arrow god and the sun-killing bow, were in the land of buried gods. For this information alone, the eastern barbarians could not reject Zhangzas's proposal. Not to mention the fact that the Zhang father-son duo had even told them about the trial and how elites of the 9 great silver rank forces would be dispatched to the graveyard of gods as a result. In order for them to obtain their ultimate treasure and the remains of their ancestor. To eliminate future leaders of the land of chaos. To obtain the pure soul springs and the remains of ancient elites. The eastern barbarians gathered hundreds of tribesmen in the Nether Passage realm and had them enter the graveyard of gods through different spatial passageways. Jiang Tangxing knew more about the graveyard of gods than anyone else in here. Every step he took probably corresponded with a plan that was already in place. One piece of information after another, Jiao Yu explained everything about Jiang Tangxing that Jiao Yu had told him. This information shocked Qin Lai and the others beyond belief. They never would have imagined that the first ones to solve the mysteries of the graveyard of gods would be the Zhang father-son pair. They hadn't expected them to be the driving force behind the entrance of the eastern barbarians. It seemed as though Zhangzas, the culprit of the catastrophe that turned the land of chaos upside down 1,000 years ago, driving Blood Fiend sect to its destruction, was the terrible scourge behind everything in the graveyard of gods. Zhangzas is extremely terrifying, Jiao Yu added. According to Jiao Yu, many elders of the eastern barbarian tribes respect him and trust him quite a bit. The eastern barbarians believe he may be the key to invading and sweeping through the land of chaos. This man vanished for more than 1,000 years and has probably been cultivating with human blood in secret. His strength has probably reached the pinnacle of strength in the land of chaos, Qin Lai said, a serious expression on his face. If he manages to obtain the blood progenitor's body, seize the bloodthirsty dragon, and plunder all of the remains of these ancient elites, he may turn the land of chaos on its head once more. In his eyes, Zhu Li's junior brother, Zhangzas, had just become the land of chaos's most terrifying enemy. Chapter 538, Blood Energy that Reached the Sky. While Jiao Yu had been speaking, the demonified Zhang Tanxing began moving toward the nearest body of an ancient elite. It was the body of a person of the wood race. This person was about 2.5 meters tall. This person's body resembled the trunk of a tree, had skin as brown as wood and as wrinkled as bark. His long, dark green hair looked like the foliage of a willow tree. This wood race clansman had been dead for years. Its body didn't bear any traces of a soul aura. It did, however, resemble the branches of an ancient tree that contained abundant life energy. An extremely refined life energy, at that. Up above, at the edge of the frozen lake, Zi Jingxuan and Su Moyan were watching Zhang Tanxing closely. When they saw him approach that particular body, light flashed through their eyes at the same time. Both of them were especially interested in the body of this wood race clansman. They were both aware of the fact that it held tremendous amounts of life energy, which was extremely beneficial to them. Zhu Jingxuan could use its life energy to enhance her own strength and bring the inheritance she received from the wood race to even greater heights. Su Moyan, on the other hand, could extract the life energy from this wood race clansman's body and use it to help her mother awaken and recover. In order to obtain the remains of these ancient elites, one must first obtain their acknowledgement. Jiao Yu spoke up once more. You can't just grab them recklessly. Every time an elite perishes, their juniors, relative, and comrades would bring them here. They would then apply a unique mark to these bodies to keep other people from abusing them and prevent any accidents. Sen Yi was able to collect the body of the arrow god and the sun-killing bow because he brought an ancient Eastern barbarian treasure with him. That scarlet feather arrow was a part of the sun-killing bow to begin with, and it contained an aura that the mark on the arrow god's body acknowledged. That's the reason why Sen Yi succeeded. As for me, I already obtained the acknowledgement of the soul fragment of the evil god at the Demon God mountain range prior to entering the graveyard of the gods. Jiao Yu looked at Zi Jingxuan, then indifferently said, Your aura is slightly similar to that of the body of the wood race elite down there. You may be able to acquire it. He looked at Su Moyan and shook his head. You would probably fail. How about him? Zi Jingxuan and Su Moyan asked in unison. They were referring to Zhang Tanxing. Right now, the demonified Zhang Tanxing had already arrived beside the body of that wood race elite. Since blood demons were created from blood, their appearances were normally indistinct and blurry. This blood demon, however, was different. It bore a great resemblance to Zhang Tanxing. It suddenly looked at the body of the wood race elite with its bright red eyes. Him? He knows more about the graveyard of gods than anyone here, Jiao Yu answered. The blood demon opened its mouth and took a deep, lengthy breath. Swoosh! As a result of the blood demon's actions, the rich life energy within the wood race clansman's body transformed into multiple streams of emerald liquid. These streams flew from the body, mixed with blood energy and refined spirit energy, and actually shot right into the demon's bloody maw. Bang! The body of the wood race clansman, which had been brimming with life energy, rotted as all of its essences were extracted from it. When a gust of frigid wind blew across it a few moments later, the rotted corpse crumbled to dust and spread into the air. Without the protection of the refined spirit energy, it turned to dust as if thousands of years had gone by in an instant. On the other hand, the body of the demonified Zhang Tanxing, which already surged with tremendous blood energy, emanated an even greater life force than before. It seemed as if its strength had skyrocketed, becoming several times stronger. The residual shock waves of energy created by the clashes between the demon-sealing tombstone and the three spirit were no longer able to affect him. Isn't the Zhang Tanxing a member of your celestial artifact sect? Yu Min yelled in a grave tone. He and Fenya currently stood at the edge of the frozen lake. They were looking down at the land of buried gods, which looked so vast that it resembled an abyss. The expression on Feng Yu's face became increasingly grim as he stared at every single one of Jiang Tanxing's movements. "Don't you know that he and Zhangzas are evil remnants of Blood Fiend sect?" Yu Men asked, snorting coldly. Feng Yu wore a dark expression, a complicated look in his eyes. He had yet to answer Yu Men's questions. Celestial Artifact Sect exposed the secrets behind the Graveyard of Gods, the 8 god corpses, and the spatial passageway we used to enter this place. Yu Men's brow was deeply furrowed. "So why does Jiang Tanxing know even more than you do?" Helpless in the face of Yu Men's interrogation, Feng Yu finally told him the truth. The information on the Graveyard of Gods at 10,000 Beast Mountain received did, indeed, originate from Celestial Artifact Sect. However, we got that information from Zhangzas and his son, Jiang Tanxing, he explained. The two of them came to Celestial Artifact Sect 100 years ago, claiming that they knew of a great secret that would influence the future of the Land of Chaos. Zhangzas wanted to borrow our strength to force the god corpses to emerge from the bottom of the sea and find the spatial passageway into the Graveyard of Gods. Everything that Celestial Artifact Sect knew about the Graveyard of Gods. You learned it from Zhangzas? Yu Men asked in startled disbelief. Correct. Feng Yu smiled bitterly. Why has Jiang Tanxing colluded with the Eastern barbarians? Yu Men asked. Feng Yu shook his head. I don't know. At this point, both Yu Men and Feng Yu figured out that the Zhang father-son pair had only sought out Celestial Artifact Sect to use them. The areas in which the first god corpses surfaced were close to Celestial Artifact Sect. With the assistance of the sect's elders, Zhangzas used Celestial Artifact Sect's strength to extract those first few god corpses from the bottom of the sea. This also meant that, without Celestial Artifact Sect's assistance, the god corpses wouldn't have appeared one after another, and the spatial passageway into the Graveyard of Gods never would have been found. The Zhang father-son pair had used Celestial Artifact Sect to open the entrance to the Graveyard of Gods. They obviously had their own plan. The fact that they encouraged the Eastern barbarians to send the elites of the 3 great tribes into the Graveyard of the Gods clearly meant that their plan differed from that of the 9 great silver rank forces. From the moment that Jiang Tanxing transformed into a blood demon and began sucking the refined blood from the bodies of ancient elites, both Feng Yu and the Eastern barbarians understood that the father-son pair harbored sinister intentions. At this time, the demon sealing tombstone hovered above the land of buried gods, continuously discharging dazzling godly lights to suppress the ancient giant, ape, and merfolk woman that the 3 spirits had possessed. Both sides were engaged in fierce battle. The only thing the demon sealing tombstone cared about was sealing the 7 spirits. Regardless of how much trouble the demonified Jiang Tanxing caused, it just didn't see him as a target. Therefore, as soon as Jiang Tanxing became able to ignore the residual shock waves that swept across the land of buried gods, it meant that he could stay there and suck the blood from the body of one ancient elite after another. The blood demon would continue growing more and more terrifying. Someone needs to stop the Jiang Tanxing in his blood demon form. Zhu Xiangyang exclaimed. Otherwise, the remains of those ancient elites will be destroyed and he will just get stronger and stronger. Once that happens, no one will be able to stop him. Qian Lai's group were the only ones who thought this. Everyone else present, Sun Yi and his Eastern barbarians, Feng Yu, and Yu Men, had noticed the enormous threat that Jiang Tanxing posed. Feng Yu and Yu Men wanted to attack him, but they didn't dare to venture into the land of buried gods. Therefore, they could only watch from the periphery. Sun Yi was hesitating. After obtaining the sun-killing bow, he now had the ability to kill Jiang Tanxing from a distance. However, the eastern barbarians had an agreement with the Zhang father-son pair. The elders of the three great tribes trusted Zhang trusted and planned to use him to raise the land of chaos. Zhang Tangxing's attention was currently focused on the remains of the ancient elites, not the eastern barbarians. This was why Sun Yi couldn't come to a decision. If we don't kill Zhang Tangxing now, all of us will soon die. Harsh light shone from Luo Qian's eyes. He was the first to take action. 7 moon slash. 7 sword beams shaped like crescent moons suddenly shot into the air high above the land of buried gods. Each crescent sword beam radiated a harsh, sharp aura. They shot toward Zhang Tangxing at the bottom of the frozen lake, each prismatic sword beam growing even more dazzling than before. At a glance, the 7 crescent-shaped sword beams actually made it seem as if the cold midnight moon had come crashing toward the ground. This was one of Luo Chen's greatest sword arts. Grrrr! The blood demon roared at the sky, terrifying bloody light erupting from its eyes. Bloody screens of light appeared as it charged toward the incoming attack. Bloody screens flooded over the 7 cold crescents made of bright light, corrupting them with a thick fiendish aura of blood. The sword beams went dim, their light instantly disappearing. Whack! Luo Chen spat out a mouthful of blood as the harshness in his eyes suddenly softened. This signified that his sword will had dissipated. Zhang Tangxing's blood aura is too powerful. I can't kill him, and he'll only grow stronger with each passing second. After making this declaration, Luo Chen sat down and focused on treating his injuries. Qin Lai and the others weren't the only ones that had been watching Luo Chen attack. The eastern barbarians, Yu Men, and Feng Ye had been watching as well. They had seen everything and noticed, immediately after he attacked Zhang Tangxing, Luo Chen spat out a mouthful of blood and sat down. Although he had initially been hesitant about what to do, an expression of wariness appeared on Sun Yi's face. At the same time, shock filled Feng Yu's and Yu Men's faces. Chapter 539, Watching from the Sidelines. The Demonify.
Chapter 543, Zhangzuz. With a blood bridge successfully formed, Zhangzuz emerged from the blood demon and appeared in the land of buried gods. Zhang Tangxing, who had sunken deep within the blood demon, finally sighed in relief the moment his father arrived. He emerged from the blood demon's head, descending to the ground to stand beside Zhangzuz. Since 6 of the 7 spirits that maintained the restrictive barrier that surrounded the graveyard of gods had been sealed by the demon-sealing tombstone, that barrier had been mercilessly destroyed. As a result, the restriction on the graveyard of gods was no more. That was the reason why Zhang Tangxing was able to build the blood bridge and help his father enter the graveyard of gods. Zhangzuz stood there looking calm and collected. He was a handsome man, and although he appeared middle-aged, he still seemed dignified and reserved like a scholar. Surprisingly enough, even though Zhang Tangxing was significantly younger, he was far inferior to his father. Whether it was a question of presence or poise, it seemed as if he had not inherited any of Zhangzuz's genes. Everyone could see that, based on appearance alone, this junior brother of Zhu Li was truly extraordinary. Zhu Li's demeanor, in comparison, was much poorer. Even his presence seemed a bit worse than Zhangzuz's. In Qin Lai's opinion, out of all the high-realm martial practitioners he knew of, Li Mu was probably the only person that could compare to Zhangzuz. Profound Heaven Alliance's Song Yu, Ziyao Ouyang, and Nie Yun, and also 8 Extreme Temple's Holy Master, weren't even in the same league as this Zhangzuz. Swoosh! The blood progenitor's body flew down from the edge of the frozen lake and shot toward Zhang Tangxing. The blood-thirsty dragon, in its arm guard form attached to the blood progenitor's left arm, stared closely at the bloody bone fragment in Zhang Tangxing's hands. The Blood Codex. Qinlai and Zhu Moyan cried at the same time. The bloody bone fragment that Zhang Danxing held literally looked the same as the one that Qinlai originally possessed. The Blood Codex was divided into two parts, the first half and the second half. For the longest time, Blood Fiend sect only possessed the first half of the Blood Codex. This half alone enabled Blood Fiend sect to prosper and dominate the land of chaos for a period of time. Yet despite Blood Fiend sect's ceaseless efforts to search for the other half of the Blood Codex, they never found it. No one could have imagined that the second half of the Blood Codex was actually in the hands of Zhang Zuz and his son. The Blood Progenitor had broken free of Qinlai's control and charged at Zhang Danxing because it had obviously detected the second half of the Blood Codex. The Blood Codex was forged using a fragment of the Blood Progenitor's bone and refined using his blood. It shared a miraculous connection with the Blood Progenitor and a wondrous resonance with Bloodthirsty Dragon. Oh? The body of the Blood Progenitor and the Bloodthirsty Dragon, the ultimate treasure of the sect? How wonderful! A look of joy appeared on Zhang Zuz's face when he saw the Blood Progenitor flying toward him like a ray of bloody light. He raised a hand, turning to grab the Blood Codex from Zhang Danxing. The moment the second half of the Codex fell into Zhang Zuz's hands, a sudden surge of seemingly endless blood energy erupted from it. Eh? Zhang Zuz exclaimed softly, a trace of surprise appearing in his intimidating, demonic eyes. The first half of the Blood Codex is actually inside of the progenitor's body. Using the second half of the Blood Codex, Zhang Zuz immediately discovered that the other half lay within the Blood Progenitor's body. Zhang Zuz had searched for the first half of the Blood Codex for many years after imprisoning Zhu Li. The Blood Progenitor's remains, the Bloodthirsty Dragon, and the Blood Codex were all treasures of Blood Fiend sect. They were the ultimate goal that Zhang Zuz had been chasing for his entire life. Now, the moment he entered the land of buried gods, he discovered that all three of these treasures were in one place. How could this not fill him with delight? Phew! Zhang Zuz suddenly flew into the air and dove into the Blood Demon. Grrrr! The Blood Demon unleashed a furious roar, unleashing an overflowing, fiendish blood aura. Numerous bloody tentacles reminiscent of an octopus's limbs sprouted from its body, twisting and slipping into the remains of ancient elites like bloody pythons. Glug! 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 The bloody pythons crazily devoured the blood that remained within those bodies, all of which flowed straight to the Blood Demon. The fiendish blood aura emanating from the Blood Demon instantly became several times stronger than before. Boom! The Blood Progenitor's body rushed to the Blood Demon, but the bloody pythons sticking out of the Blood Demon swatted it far to the side. Qinlai! Du Xiangyang exclaimed. It seems like the Blood Progenitor's body can't channel the blood spirit art and unleash its power without your control. The demon sealing tombstone hovered high above the land of buried gods, intimidating the voodoo progenitor, whereas the 8 godheads simply rotated where they hovered. Then, all of a sudden, all 8 flew toward icy mountains in the distance. They seemed to be searching for the ice spirit's whereabouts. Prak prak prak. Divine lights burst from the demon sealing tombstone once more, streaking toward the voodoo progenitor and the blood demon that Zhang Zuz merged with. It was at this moment that Zhu Moyan charged down the side of the frozen lake with gritted teeth, her eyes glittering with harsh light. She leapt through the air, flying straight toward Zhang Danxing and Zhang Zuz, creating multiple graceful shadows. Zhang Zuz had hurt her entire family. Her father had been imprisoned for 1,000 years, her mother suffered grievous wounds at his hands, and she herself was born with a short lifespan. These were all consequences of the evils that Zhang Zuz committed. You shouldn't have entered the graveyard of gods, niece Zhu. Contrary to expectations, Zhang sighed helplessly from within the blood demon as if he were regretting something. A gentle bloody light shot from the blood demon's chest, instantly wrapping around Zhu Moyan's petite body like a soft, bloody ribbon. Bound in midair by that bloody ribbon of light, Zhu Moyan swore and yelled. However, she couldn't move at all. Senior Zhang. Sen Yi cried out in surprise. You came here for the arrow god's body and the sun-killing bow. Have you obtained them? Zhang asked indifferently. We have. Sen Yi exclaimed. Zhang laughed softly and said, That's good. Since you have achieved your goal, you no longer need to stay in this place. Leave using the directions I provided you as soon as possible. But there are still so many bodies of ancient elites here. An Eastern barbarian cried out greedily. You can take what you should take. You cannot touch what you should not take, Zhang said in a grave tone. Leave. Sen Yi took a moment to gauge the situation, then he said, Leaf is hurt and Jiayu has been possessed by the ice spirit. A blood light wrapped around Leaf and tossed him over to where Sen Yi's group at one edge of the frozen lake. Take him away, Zhang said impatiently. But I'm unable to separate the ice spirit from the white barbarian girl Jiayu. Leave. Now. What should we do, young master? An Eastern barbarian asked in a low voice. The eyes of the remaining Eastern barbarians were sparkling. They clearly still coveted the remains of the ancient elites in the land of buried gods. Sen Yi hesitated for a moment before taking a deep breath and yelling, Let's go. Just like that, the Eastern barbarians turned around and left. Zhang says. Feng Yu yelled angrily. You hidden celestial artifact sect, earned our trust, requested our help to search for the graveyard of gods and fish all of the god corpses out of the sea to achieve your own goals, didn't you? I don't need to explain anything to you. Zhang tone was cold and indifferent. You must have gone through many hardships to survive up to this point. To give your father some face, I will remind you, don't do something that you'll regret. Question your father about the land of buried gods once you return. Don't come to me for answers. Surprise covered Feng Yu's face. Everything I've done is a part of an agreement between your father and I. He is well aware of my goals, Zhang said nonchalantly. How could he possibly know? Feng Yu asked in confusion. Ask him yourself when you return. Zhang started growing more and more impatient. Without warning, his figure emerged from the blood demon's forehead, and he swept his gaze over the numerous remains strewn across the desolate plain below him. The moment his eyes fell upon Qinlai, an odd light shone within them. Are you the one who obtained the acknowledgement of the demon sealing tombstone, boy? Qinlai frowned and nodded. Fluctuations of blood energy are coming from the blood progenitor's body. Is it resonating with you? Zhang asked. Qinlai nodded again. The other half of the blood codex inside of the blood progenitor's body. Is it yours or niece Zhu's? It's mine. Oh. Zhang rubbed his chin and thought to himself for a moment, then suddenly said, My senior brother said that a young man would help Blood Fiend Sect regain its former glory. You're the young man he was referring to, aren't you? This sudden change in topic startled Qinlai. How is he doing? If I remember correctly, I should have only refined half of his soul back then. The other half of his soul should still be around, right? Shock filled Qinlai's face. So you actually knew. Chapter 544, Twisted Ideals. How would I not know? Zhang asked. He began laughing, then drew the second half off the blood codex into him. The moment it sort of disappeared, the blood progenitor's body, which had been instinctively charging toward it over and over, suddenly lost its target. It came to a halt, not moving a muscle. At this moment, the bloody ribbon of light wrapped around Zhu Moyan's body, immobilizing her, She could only glare at Zhang Zuz hatefully. Sen Yi had already left with the remaining eastern barbarians. It seemed as if they no longer cared about the land of buried gods or the remains of the ancient elites that lay within it. Zhang Zuz's words had perplexed Feng Yu into silence. You men never had anything to say to begin with. The 8 godheads had flown away in search of the ice spirit. The demon-sealing tombstone hovered high in the air, suppressing the voodoo progenitor with its divine might and preventing the blood demon, which Zhang Zuz was currently in, from damaging the remains of ancient elites however it wanted. The situation had suddenly stabilized. Only the occasional rumble or crack resounded from icy mountains beside the frozen lake. 7 types of rich, worldly spirit energy continued to gush from the fissures in the ground. The only difference between my senior brother and I is our ideals. We share the same goal, really. Zhang Zuz sighed softly, his face full of regret as he continued, we both want to revive Blood Fiend sect and return it to its former glory. We both want it to be the dominant sect in the land of chaos. In this regard, I, my senior brother, my junior sister, and even our master, we all have the same goal. Zhang Zuz shook his head. Unfortunately, the others are behind the times. They don't adapt. They, who can't accept cultivating by absorbing human blood, are the ones that have been preventing Blood Fiend sect's rise to power all along. How do you even have the nerve to say that? Zhu Moyan yelled, harshness filling her petite face. Someone who sucks the blood of their own kind to cultivate is no better than an animal. If we can cultivate using the blood, bones, and cores of spirit beasts, absorbing the power within them to facilitate our own cultivation and temper powerful spirit artifacts, why can't we cultivate using human blood? Zhang Zuz retorted with a calm smile. Many ancient elites are buried here in the land of buried gods. There are bodies of members of the Nether Realm's evil races, members of the giant spirit race, and members of other highly intelligent races as well. Even humans. Look at all of the people who've come here. Tell me, what did they come here for? Aren't they here to obtain the remains of these powerful beings and use them to forge spirit artifacts? To increase their own strength? All trial participants that have entered this land, heed me. Are your goals truly that noble? Are your actions more humane than using human blood to cultivate? Aren't you just as despicable? Aren't you ignoring all rules and conventions in the pursuit of higher realms and more strength? Zhang Zuz wore an expression of disbelief. The people who ordered you to come here, the sect masters of the 9 great silver rank forces, were they not planning to use the remains of the dead as well? You, and the people behind you, won't even leave the remains of your own kind in peace. How dare you self-righteously condemn my actions? Zhang Zuz's words made everyone subconsciously look at each other. They found themselves unable to say anything in response. He wasn't wrong. Nearly everyone who entered the land of buried gods sought to obtain the body of an ancient elite for their own use. The seniors that had sent them planned to do the same. They were well aware of the fact that human ancestors had also been laid to rest here. After obtaining the remains of these ancient elites, bringing them out of the graveyard of gods and returning to your sex. What will you do with them? Zhang Zuz smiled again. Here's what you would do. You would extract the remaining energy from them, use each body to forge spirit artifacts or refine a puppet body. He paused for a moment, then continued, I truly would like to know. How much of a difference is there between extracting the energy from a dead person's body and me consuming the blood essence of a living person? This. Zhang Zuz's twisted logic stunned everyone. They had to admit that he did make some sense. Not only was he eloquent and rational, he also had his own set of ideals that wasn't confined to the standards of society. See? Zhang Zuz asked, smiling. You can't think of anything to say in response. Can you? Senior brother, junior sister, and master couldn't accept the idea of consuming human blood to cultivate. However, what they didn't know was that this is actually the fastest way to strengthen Blood Fiend sect and allow it to dominate the land of chaos. Zhangzi stopped speaking for a moment and sighed, an expression of helplessness on his face. After I failed to persuade them over and over again, I had no choice but to commit murder. Everything I did for the future of Blood Fiend sect. For the future of Blood Fiend sect? Zhu Moyan gritted her teeth. Blood Fiend sect has already perished. Look at what has happened to me, my father, my mother, and my grandfather. Is this what your so-called future of Blood Fiend sect looks like? A temporary setback will not shake my determination. Soon enough, Blood Fiend sect will once again rise to power in the land of chaos and surpass all existing forces. Eerie light glittered in Zhangzi's eyes as he thought to himself for a moment, then sighed. If I truly did not care for bonds I shared with others, senior brother would not have survived our last encounter. You, niece Zhu, would not be alive right now. Are you telling me to thank you? Zhu Moyan's bright eyes looked as if they could shoot fire. Hee. I know you still hate me. I can understand that, Zhangzi said calmly. For the future of Blood Fiend sect, and for the ideals I hold within my heart, I will continue walking this path no matter what happens. Because I believe that the path I walk is the right one. This guy is insane. Du Xiangyang exclaimed with a frown. His deranged obsession has driven him insane. He isn't truly evil, Song Tin said. She wore a strange expression. But he's 100 times more dangerous than evil fanatics. The look on Qinlai's face was just as strange. Before meeting Zhangzi's, Zhu Li's description of the man and the rumors of the land of chaos convinced him that Zhangzi was just like Yu Hongxi in Blood Shadow, an evil, demonic person that thirsted for blood and enslaved his own kind. However, upon meeting him in person, Qinlai saw Zhangzi's demeanor toward Zhu Moyan, the Eastern barbarians, and Feng Yu. He realized that this man was different than he originally thought. With his strength, Zhangzi could have easily killed Zhu Moyan, Feng Yu, and all of the Eastern barbarians if he wanted to. Instead, he simply restrained Zhu Moyan and kept his promise with the Eastern barbarians, allowing Shen Yi to lead his tribesmen out of the graveyard of gods. He had even helped Dief and gave Feng Yu cryptic warnings. With his absolute strength, he could have just killed everyone who opposed him. This was the graveyard of gods. Who could stop him? If he did kill everyone, we would know about it. Yet, he didn't. Instead, he went as far as explaining to Qinlai and Zhu Moyan that the only difference between him, Zhu Li, and their master, Mo Yanwu, was their ideals. To Zhangzi's, everything he had done wasn't for himself, but for Blood Fiend sect. He did it all for the Blood Fiend sect in his heart. He believed that sucking human blood to cultivate was the right choice. Since he believed that his ideals and means were right, Zhangzi ultimately walked a path separate from Mo Yanwu and Zhu Li. He would use his own methods to strengthen Blood Fiend sect and prove himself. My senior brother and my master no longer acknowledge me, and every force in the land of chaos treats me as an evildoer that strayed from the correct path, Zhangzi said calmly, shaking his head. However, this supposed evildoer will one day become stronger than any force in existence. When Blood Fiend sect has grown so strong that not even the combined strength of the 9 great silver rank forces can stop it, I very much like to see what everyone thinks about my methods. The forces of the land of chaos hunted me down for so many years. My disciples became the objects of everyone's hatred and are now afraid of showing their faces anywhere. I have to take revenge for this and make them pay their debt. Zhangzi took a deep breath and smiled. They won't allow me to consume the blood of a living person? Fine. I'll just use a dead person's blood to cultivate then. I'll take all of the blood that remains in the bodies of these ancient elites and use it to facilitate my disciples' cultivation of the blood spirit art. It won't take long for my blood fiend sect to become a bloody tornado that envelops all of the land of chaos. The moment he finally made his true intentions known, a glint of bloody insanity shone in Zhang Zuz's eyes. That won't be necessary. Qinlai interrupted Zhang Zuz's frenzied moment. I'm going to take the blood progenitor's body away from here and give it to Senior Zhu Li so he can merge with it. With the blood codex and the blood-thirsty dragon, he'll definitely become more powerful than ever before. In addition to that, Blood Fiend sect already has a group of people that has received its inheritance. They will be the ones to ensure that Blood Fiend sect rises in the heavenly calamity continent once again. Senior brother's perspective is too rigid and his soul is greatly damaged. Even if he did obtain the progenitor's body, he wouldn't be able to dominate this world. Zhang Zu snorted. He couldn't break free from his imprisonment for 1,000 years and his realm hasn't made any breakthroughs. Instead of improving, his strength has declined. He will no longer be able to catch up to this new era. His ideals will not forge a real future for Blood Fiend sect. I am the only hope for Blood Fiend sect's future. I am the only one who can lead Blood Fiend sect to heights beyond its former glory. Zhang Zu snorted, reaching out to grab hold of the blood progenitor's body, which had lost its target and was now in a daze, unmoving. You are not worthy. Qinlai finally chose to act. Chapter 545, Blood Web. Zhang Zu once turned all of the land of chaos upside down. He and his human blood-sucking disciples created a bloody typhoon that swept across it, causing chaos among its forces and making them feel helpless. After more than 1,000 years of silence, Zhang Zu still remained one of the most terrifying people in the land of chaos. Wasn't it just a fool's dream for Qinlai, a martial practitioner who was just in the middle stage of the Nether Passage realm, to try opposing this lunatic? You want to fight me? Zhang Zu laughed involuntarily and shook his head. You're not even a match for my son? He frowned slightly at Zhang Danxing. Do you seriously believe that you will become the future of Blood Fiend sect? Zhang Danxing laughed coldly, his expression dark. Foolish brat. If you hadn't been near Sea Moon Island, if you hadn't snatched the demon sealing tombstone from me, our plan would have been flawless. You and Senior Uncle Zhu, the one who taught you the blood spirit art, are simply obstacles in the way of Blood Fiend sect's growth. Heavenly Blood Web. Bloody threads shot from the tips of Zhang Danxing's fingers, forming a web several acres wide. It hurtled toward Qinlai's position at the edge of the frozen lake like a large bloody net. Every single bloody thread contained Zhang Danxing's cruel soul energy. The blood flew over to Qinlai and was now above his head, radiating strange fluctuations capable of making a person's blood boil uncontrollably and binding one's soul. This was a miraculous spirit art that couldn't be found in the first half of the Blood Codex. Break! Qinlai yelled, forming another blood-weeping ghost claw. It appeared above his head in a flash of demonic, bloody light, resembling a sharp, sanguine hook. It ferociously swiped at the heavenly blood web descending upon him. Two violent blood spirit energies, both of which originated from the same sect, clashed in midair. In that instant, Qinlai's energy and Zhang Danxing's energy erupted at the same time. Papa Papa. The bloody light of the blood-weeping ghost claw was peerlessly sharp. It actually tore the heavenly blood web into pieces. The fiendish, ghastly claw struck toward Zhang Danxing's head. A terrifying, vicious sword surrounded it, one capable of destroying all living things and returning them to deathly silence. This was an attack that Qinlai had formed with his own power. Over by Zhongzha's, the blood progenitor's body mirrored Qinlai's actions and channeled the blood spirit art, creating a blood-weeping ghost claw as well. An enormous bloody claw thousands of meters long suddenly appeared in the air. It radiated a terrifying, fiendish blood aura that nearly enveloped the entire land of buried gods, one that surprised even Zhongzha's. This truly is the blood progenitor's body. Zhongzha's clicked his tongue in wonder. To think that it still contained such terrifying power despite the fact that he perished so many years ago. Fall! Qinlai shouted, swinging his arm downward. Both blood-weeping ghost claws, one gigantic and one small, followed Qinlai's movements and struck toward Zhongzha's and Zhong Tangxing respectively. You're quite talented and your blood spirit art is quite polished. Zhongzha smiled while shaking his head. Unfortunately, your realm is too weak. As he spoke, the blood demon he had merged with copied Zhong Tangxing's earlier motions and created another heavenly blood web. This bloody web blotted out the sky like an act of God. All of this blood, which the blood demon unleashed, enveloped the land of buried gods. It seemed capable of sealing the heavens themselves. Sparkling bloody lights so dense that they might as well have been thick rivers of blood flowed through the sky in an eerie fashion. They were unspeakably wondrous and exuded a pungent stench of iron. Then, all of a sudden, the heavenly blood web constricted. The web of blood instantly bound both the blood progenitors and Qinlai's blood-weeping ghost claws. The two ghastly claws resembled a whale and a tiny fish that were caught in a sanguine fisherman's net, instantly getting immobilized. Your realm is weak and your understanding of blood fiend sex spirit art is still lacking. Zhongzha's performed a pulling motion with both hands, making the heavenly blood web drag the two ghastly claws to the blood demon's chest. Blood fiend sect was enormous. But now I'm the only one capable of unleashing the progenitor's true power. His hands abruptly clenched into fists. Bang! Bang! The blood-weeping ghost claws erupted like tomatoes being crushed, scattering into countless bloody lights. The blood progenitor stood still as if it weren't affected at all. Qinlai, on the other hand, looked as if he had just taken a heavy blow. He grunted softly, a trace of blood trickling from a corner of his mouth. Since you cultivate the blood spirit art and are my senior brother's only disciple, as long as you sever your mental connection with the progenitor's body, I'll spare you, Zhongzha said sternly, a calm expression on his face. Furthermore, as long as you are willing, I will teach you the secrets of the second half of the Blood Codex, and help you understand the true essence of the blood spirit art. The true essence of the blood spirit art? Qinlai said, his face becoming grim. You're talking about sucking human blood? You could say that. Zhongzha smiled, not bothering to deny it. In reality, even the blood progenitor consumed human blood to cultivate. The blood refinement art recorded in the second half of the Blood Codex, which I have in my possession, was written by the progenitor himself. The blood spirit art that you consider so evil came from this half of the Blood Codex. Zhongzha's words shocked Qinlai and Zumoyan to their very cores. Off in the distance, the expressions of Luo Chen and the others became even more serious. This revelation caused a strange look to appear in their eyes. The blood progenitor sucked human blood to cultivate, and the second half of the Blood Codex actually had this shortcut recorded within it? There are only two differences between our respective blood spirit arts. Both have their own advantages and flaws, Zhongzha explained patiently. Those who cultivate using the blood of spirit beasts and refine them with worldly spirit energy don't need to worry about repeated attacks from an inner demon, but their cultivation speed is slower. Meanwhile, those who consume human blood to cultivate risk being forced into a state of insanity and gradually losing themselves, but the speed of their cultivation is significantly faster. Zhang paused, smiling softly before continuing. After 1,000 years of research, I finally found a method to get rid of the flaws in cultivating with human blood. You could even say that consuming human blood to cultivate no longer has any drawbacks, he proudly declared. With your talent and skill, your future will be filled with boundless opportunities. So long as you are willing to follow me and cultivate my blood spirit heart. How about it? Zhang asked. Would you consider it? Like a devil trying to seduce a mortal, Zhang patiently and systematically tried to tempt Qinlai into abandoning the original blood spirit art and cultivate his instead. He was trying to convince Qinlai to suck human blood to cultivate. Allow me to look at the second half of the blood codex first. I would like to confirm if this method is truly recorded within it, Qinlai said calmly. His eyes narrowed. He clearly hadn't fallen for Zhang's persuasion. If it is truly recorded inside of the blood codex, I may consider it. From beginning to end, this entire story came from Zhang's. The supposed record of the cultivation method in the second half of the blood codex, his grudges against Zhu Li and the others, and even his intent to revitalize Blood Fiend sect had come from his mouth alone. Qinlai doubted his words. He didn't believe there was truth to everything Zhang said. You may look at it. Zhang spoke deliberately, looking at the rest of Qinlai's group in the distance. As long as you are willing to consume the blood of any of those people and use the blood refinement art. If you do that, I'll let you see the second half of the blood codex. What do you think? I can only make a decision after seeing the blood codex, Qinlai said indifferently. Zhang finally lost his patience. He frowned, the look in his eyes becoming grim and harsh. Stupid brat. You're even more long-winded and blunt than my senior brother. The heavenly blood web that covered the sky suddenly descended and began enveloping the blood progenitor. Zhang's ultimately desire in the body of the blood progenitor, the blood-thirsty dragon, and the first half of the blood codex. He wasted so much time talking because he hoped to get Qinlai to surrender willingly. If he managed to do so, he wouldn't have had to waste even more time and energy on severing the connection between Qinlai and the blood progenitor. If Zhang managed to convince Qinlai that his path was the right one, he might have even been able to turn him against Zhu Li. Such an outcome would have dealt a severe blow to Zhu Li's cause. Unfortunately, Qinlai was a lot more difficult to deal with than he had imagined. Qinlai had a stronger will than expected and hadn't fallen for any of his tempting. He no longer wanted to waste time trying. Blood Dragon's roar. A violent bloody dragon emerged from the forehead of the blood demon with an angry roar. With the heavenly blood web binding the blood progenitor's body, the bloody dragon turned to attack Qinlai. Zhang sought to break the connection between Qinlai and the blood progenitor as soon as possible. To that end, he needed to hurt both of them at the same time. At that instant, dazzling godly chains of light emerged from inside the demon sealing tombstone once more. Swoosh swoosh swoosh. These chains headed toward Zhang. The demon sealing tombstone had just been standing by and watching as Qinlai attacked the Zhang father-son duo. It didn't do anything because Qinlai was the attacker. However, it took action the second Zhang attacked Qinlai. It seemed unwilling to let that happen. Chapter 546, Soul Pagoda. The demon sealing tombstone moved to interfere with Zhang's assault. 7 prismatic lights descended from the sky like starry rivers from the ninth heaven, immediately pouring down onto Zhang. A restrictive power 10 times stronger than that of the heavenly blood web rippled through the sky as the 7 godly lights struck Zhang's body. Before 6 of the 7 spirits were sealed and their respective forbidden lands exploded into smithereens, a restrictive power kept high realm martial practitioners from entering the graveyard of gods. Only beings in the nether passage realm and below were allowed inside. However, after the colossal collapse from earlier tore that restrictive power apart, Zhang Zuz was able to enter. Yet at this moment, the demon sealing tombstone unleashed its sealing power, causing its 7 prismatic godly lights to fall through the sky. The restrictive power that seemed to have vanished appeared once more. Boom! A vast, chaotic power gushed into Zhang Zuz's body like the flood of a broken dam. He instantly felt as if he had been bound by countless chains. Zhang Zuz suddenly found himself immobilized. Bang! The fiendish, 10-meter-tall blood demon exploded upon being targeted by the demon sealing tombstone. Shock flashed across Zhang Zuz's face the moment he noticed that the situation had gone awry, and he took out the second half of the blood codex once again. The fiendish blood demon, which had been scattered in every direction like a shower of blood, flew toward the sanguine bone fragment in Zhang Zuz's hands like bloody butterflies. The blood demon had exploded, but its bloody light hadn't gone to waste. All of it soaked into the second half of the blood codex. Zhang Zuz's demonic eyes shone with a bloody light as his confident, dignified temperament slowly transformed. His body gradually unleashed a tyrannical aura that enveloped the sky, continuously condensing and becoming more potent. Zhang Zuz grew stronger with each passing second. Something's wrong. Qinlai had a strange feeling, his expression growing incredibly serious. In his eyes, Zhang Zuz currently looked like he were slowly increasing his strength in preparation for something. It was as if he were undergoing some sort of metamorphosis. Zhang Zuz panted heavily as his tyrannical pupils glittered with bloody light. His fingernails grew abnormally long and became as sharp as bloody blades. His body gradually became thin, and sanguine hair began sprouting from his flesh. He seemed to be transforming into a beast. "He's gathering the tyrannical aura inside of the blood," Zhu Moyan screamed. "He's using it to transform his own body into a blood demon." Bloody lights that resembled sanguine bolts of lightning flashed across Zhang Zuz while he unleashed a sharp, frenzied howl. A terrifying roar surged skyward like mountains or seas accompanied by bloody rays of light. Prak prak prak. The restrictive power that bound Zhang Zuz like invisible chains were instantly torn apart. Zhang Zuz regained his mobility. The dazzling prismatic lights in the demon sealing tombstone shook intensely, and a strange wave that resembled burning flames spread from its surface. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The 8 godheads that had been searching for the ice spirit rushed back to the land of buried gods from afar and swiftly gathered around the demon sealing tombstone. The godheads received the summons of the tombstone and had no choice but to temporarily give up their search for the ice spirit. They rushed over to help the demon sealing tombstone suppress Zhang Zuz. Thud. Zhu Moyan fell from the sky, crashing into the ground with so much force that the impact left her dazed. Blood spilled from the corners of her lips. The instant Zhang Zuz began transforming, losing his rationality, the bloody ribbon of light he bound Zhu Moyan was forcibly withdrawn. The light binding Zhu Moyan dissipated, and she fell from the sky. Having regained her ability to move, she immediately flew to Qinlai's side. Arriving beside Qinlai, Zhu Moyan gritted her teeth, preparing herself to oppose Zhang Zuz with him. "Go back up to the edge of the frozen lake," Qinlai yelled gravely. "Why?" Zhu Moyan asked in surprise. "Because even Zhang Tanxing has retreated from here." Qinlai wore a grim expression. Qinlai had noticed that Zhang Zuz suddenly going insane had taken Zhang Tanxing by surprise. Intense fear and panic were visible in his eyes. Immediately after that, he snuck away, retreating from the frozen lake at the first opportunity he had. Zhang Tanxing was Zhang Zuz's son? Even he retreated the moment that Zhang Zuz underwent his insane transformation. "Why don't you leave too?" Zhu Moyan asked softly. "Both the demon sealing tombstone and the body of the blood progenitor are here," he answered. Zhu Moyan looked at Zhang Zuz for a long moment, secretly examining the violent energy coming from him before turning back to Qinlai and nodding. "Then I'll be heading up first." This time, Zhu Moyan kept her wits about her and didn't act recklessly. Since she had already lost control of herself, angrily charging in and getting herself captured, she now kept calm and understood that she needed to retreat. When Zhu Moyan retreated, the expressions of Luo Chen and the others at the edge of the frozen lake twisted with shock. They had noticed that Zhang Zuz looked strange. They also sensed a terrible killing intent permeating the blood energy that enveloped the land of buried gods. Zhang Zuz's current toil is probably no weaker than Forefather Terminator or our sect master. Pang Qianqian exclaimed softly, her face pale. Du Xiangyang and the others had awakened and helped her some time ago. "No one could have imagined this fellow would be so terrifying," Du Xiangyang said. "Judging from the current situation, he didn't go crazy and unleash his true strength because of Qinlai. He did that because of the demon sealing tombstone." All of them were talking amongst each other as they retreated in explosive bursts of speed. Feng Yu and Yu Men had hidden themselves long ago. Zhang Tanxing had vanished, as well. He was the first one to ascertain the situation, notice that everything had gone awry, and retreat. Aside from the massive corpses of ancient elites, only a few beings remained in the land of buried gods. Qinlai, Zhang Zuz, the demon sealing tombstone, and the bodies of both the blood progenitor and the voodoo progenitor. Since Zhang Zuz had gone insane, the only living being that could be considered human was Qinlai. Another round of clashes between the demon sealing tombstone and Zhang Zuz began, causing a world-shaking commotion in the land of buried gods. The first voodoo creature, which had quietly hidden itself within the body of the voodoo progenitor, had snuck away, seemingly afraid of showing its face. However, Qinlai had a rough idea of where it was hiding. The blood progenitor's body stood beside Qinlai and didn't move an inch. No trace of soul fluctuations could be sensed on it. At that moment, Qinlai suddenly sat down in front of the blood progenitor's body and began examining the multitude of exquisite, complicated bloody patterns on it. Countless spirit diagrams covered the blood progenitor's body. These mysterious, unfathomable spirit diagrams were the source of the miraculous connection between Qinlai and the blood progenitor's body. Zhang Zuz had actually been mistaken. Qinlai did not share even the slightest of mental connections with the blood progenitor's body. The only thing that connected the two of them were these spirit diagrams. Qinlai examined these spirit diagrams closely, trying to unravel their secrets. The moment he began doing so, he entered a meditative state where he ignored the battle between Zhang Zuz and the demon sealing tombstone, the Viridian blood toad that was in hiding, and the ice spirit that might have been scamming from the shadows. He simply looked at the spirit diagrams on the blood progenitor's body. A while later, he raised his right hand to the blood progenitor's body and pointed his index finger at a spirit diagram engraved on it. His finger softly pressed against it and moved, the wisp of mind consciousness entering the blood progenitor's body and following his finger's movements. All of a sudden, Qinlai's eyes bulged as an expression of absolute shock covered his face. His finger began trembling as well. His soul had actually gone out of control and flowed out of him through his finger. Whoosh! Qinlai's soul escaped from his soul lake and sea of consciousness, actually journeying into the blood progenitor's body in an instant. Qinlai could clearly sense his soul shoot through the translucent, gem-like blood vessels of the blood progenitor's body like a meteor. In an unimaginably strange way, he eventually reached the blood progenitor's head. His true soul had actually entered the blood progenitor's sea of consciousness. This sea of consciousness resembled a boundless sea of blood. It felt like it could have been the real world and emanated a fiendish blood aura that reached the skies. Kinlai's true soul quietly floated above this vast sea of blood, and he realized that countless dense bloody lights filled the interior of this ethereal space like a spider's web. These threads of bloody light stretched to every corner of this space that he could see, from the infinite sea of blood to the boundless sanguine sky. It was at this moment Kinlai finally understood that the spirit diagrams and the ancient diagrams hadn't been engraved on just the blood progenitor's skin. The rest of his body, even the depths of his sea of consciousness, had been dominated by these diagrams. An immeasurably large sanguine pagoda quietly sat on the surface of this vast sea of blood. It seemed to be made out of a mountain of bloody bones and looked as translucent as jade. At the top of the bloody bone pagoda sat a sparkling bone fragment. It was none other than the first volume of the Blood Codex. This pagoda was the same color of blood jade. Every single one of its 7 levels were made of translucent bloody bones. It resembled a lofty mountain that sat atop the sea of blood, emanating a terrible, fiendish blood aura capable of dominating the world. All of a sudden, Kinlai's true soul shuddered uncontrollably. A sealed memory floated from the depths of his true soul and appeared within his mind. This is a soul pagoda, Kinlai thought. This sanguine 7-level soul pagoda that sat within the blood progenitor's head seemed to contain unfathomable wonder. His previously sealed memory told him that this was a soul pagoda, something that he clearly knew was extraordinary. However, when he tried to delve deeper into what a soul pagoda was, he realized that he didn't actually know what kind of wonders one contained. Chapter 547, Shatter. Kinlai's true soul entered the blood progenitor's mind. While the demon-sealing tombstone worked to intimidate and suppress Zhangzes, Kinlai was examining the sanguine soul pagoda within the blood progenitor's sea of consciousness. The 7-level soul pagoda quietly sat on the surface of the boundless sea of blood. It resembled a majestic mountain glowing with dazzling bloody light. A soul pagoda? Kinlai's soul materialized into an indistinct, floating silhouette that slowly made its way to the top of the pagoda. A bloody bone fragment could be seen floating atop the pagoda. The moment Kinlai's soul flew up to it, the bloody threads of light spread throughout all of the blood progenitor's sea of consciousness lit up. Suddenly, a powerful force of attraction erupted from the top of the soul pagoda, and Kinlai's soul miraculously entered it like a fish diving into the sea. A miraculous feeling instantly came over him, one in which he shared an unfathomable intimate connection with the blood progenitor's body. However, his soul energy was also depleting at a ridiculously fast rate. It was as if he had put on a precious blood treasure. He could unleash its might, but he would rapidly exhaust his blood energy in order to do so. Boom! The blood progenitor's eyes, which had been closed all this time, opened, glittering with bloody light. Within them, Kinlai's expression took shape. With his soul inside of the blood progenitor's soul pagoda, Kinlai took control of the blood progenitor's body and appeared to the world as the blood progenitor himself. Just like how the Viridian blood toad, the first voodoo creature, controlled the voodoo progenitor's body. Kinlai could feel his soul energy swiftly depleting and see his own body sitting in front of him, lifeless. This made him feel incredibly strange. He attempted to channel the blood spirit heart. Seemingly endless wisps of blood energy, so refined and potent that they felt stifling, began surging out of the sea of blood within the blood progenitor's stanchion. Whoosh! Like a viscous river of blood, a lengthy bloody light suddenly wrapped around Kinlai's actual body. The river of blood flowed toward Song Chenu and the others like a bloody rainbow. As it did, Kinlai yelled in a hoarse voice. Watch over my body for me. All of them were stunned. They stared at the blood progenitor with shock, anxiety, and confusion in their eyes. They had no idea what in spirit realm was going on. The blood progenitor. He opened his eyes and spoke. He told us to watch over Kinlai's body? Panchayankayan exclaimed, covering her mouth in shock. What's wrong with Kinlai? The blood progenitor woke up? Du Xiangyang trembled. No. That isn't the blood progenitor. Zhu Moyan blurted out, shaking with realization. That's Kinlai. His soul has taken control of the blood progenitor's body. What? Song Tina cried. Kinlai is currently the blood progenitor? It's Kinlai, Zhu Moyan said confidently. Just like how the ice spirit took over Jiu and the Viridian blood toad controls the voodoo progenitor's body, Kinlai is inside of the blood progenitor's body right now. That's correct, Kinlai exclaimed through the blood progenitor's body. I'm Kinlai. Watch over my body. As he spoke, the bloody rainbow gently delivered Kinlai's actual body to them. Still in a sitting position, it landed in front of Song Tinu. Aside from the fact that no soul fluctuations could be sensed from it, it looked perfectly normal. This astounded Song Tinu, and she hurriedly pulled Kinlai's body into her embrace. She enveloped it with her shield of light and kept a close eye on it. At the same time, the bewildered gazes of the rest of the group were locked onto the blood progenitor's body. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 7 godly chains whipped through the air, repeatedly striking Zhongzas like serpentine dragons or enormous pythons. Having transformed into a demon, Zhongzas executed exquisite, earth-shakingly powerful secret arts of blood fiend sect, constantly struggling and retaliating against the godly chains of light. Bloody lights shot from his body and rocketed into the sky. Countless runes poured down onto Zhongzas's body, continuously channeling the demon sealing tombstone's terrifying restrictive power onto him. However, it wasn't enough to silence and bind him. He seemed a lot stronger than any of the 7 spirits had been. Boom boom boom. Bang bang bang. The graveyard of gods continued to violently collapse as the demon's sealing tombstone went on its sealing rampage. Terrifying spatial rifts could be seen in the depths of the dark, gray clouds in the sky. Beautiful flowing lights of spatial energy shone from inside of them. 7 types of potent spirit energy surged out of the fissures that kept tearing open the earth. The icy mountains and the surroundings fell apart one after another. It was clear to everyone that since 6 of the 7 spirits had been sealed and the 6 forbidden lands continued to explode, the graveyard of gods would soon cease to exist. Bloodthirsty dragon. Kinlai's roar suddenly resounded from deep within the cold, desolate plain. The bloodthirsty dragon suddenly materialized in a burst of fiendish blood aura. Kinlai, in the blood progenitor's body, sat atop the bloody bone dragon's head as it howled and charged at Zhongzas, a turbulent sea of blood taking shape around it. Blubbly a blub. Bloody lights quickly shot from that bubbling sea of blood, flying high up into the air. It seemed as if thousands of bloody dragons had charged out of a bloody abyss, biting and clawing toward Zhongzas. Inhabiting the blood progenitor's body, Kinlai pulled at the air with both hands and conjured countless bloody lights, sending them flying downward like cutting blades. Zzzt. The surroundings grew more and more volatile as starlight gushed from bloody spatial tears that Kinlai suddenly created. A terrifying, fiendish bloody claw as large as a mountain grasped at Zhongzas. The demon sealing tombstone seized the opportunity to shoot multiple dazzling godly lights down at almost the exact same time. Kinlai and the tombstone seemed to have an unspoken mutual understanding, acting in tandem to kill Zhongzas as soon as possible. Zhangzuz released an inhuman howl, every bone in his body beginning to break with resounding cracks. A giant bloody shadow filled with insanity, bloodlust, and the desire to destroy and wreak havoc emerged from Zhangzuz's body and roared toward the sky. It exuded an aura that made it seem capable of ravaging the world. This towering blood demon was the culmination of 1,000 years of malevolent emotions, all of which belonged to the countless people whose blood Zhangzuz had devoured. This was the physical manifestation of Zhangzuz's inner demon, the source of his recurring bouts of insanity. This was the evil blood spirit that could take over Zhangzuz. Qinlai's attack and the demon-sealing tombstone's sealing power surged to heights reminiscent of gigantic mountains, striking this blood demon that gave off an evil aura that reached the sky. The towering figure of the blood demon ceaselessly struggled, letting out roars that threatened to tear the sky.
Chapter 631, Go Back? Tang Siki, Lian'er, Mo Hai, Song Tinu, and Zi Jingxuan were staying at the island where the ancient elite remains were put. When Ken Lai, Zhu Li, and everyone else had arrived, they noticed that Sheng Yuan and Xiang Zai had come over as well. At the southwest corner of the island, there was a patch of ground that was burning with fire and sparkling with electricity. When the fire burned, clumps of colorful poison were also spreading towards all directions following the fire's spread. It worked. Tang Siki clenched her little fist and waved it repeatedly. She wore a look of excitement and wild joy on her fiery face. Liana was carrying many porcelain bottles of colorful poisons in her waist pockets. She also looked spirited as she smiled at the thick, poisonous smoke that rose from the flames. Beside her, Yi Yuan was sweating all over while looking slightly pale. "Move further away from here!" Mo Hai yelled loudly. After the crowd came over, they subconsciously looked to the places where the colorful poison had spread to. They noticed that all the plants that the poisonous smoke passed through were swiftly wilting. Some of the small bugs they purposely tossed into the range of the poisonous smoke had all died as well. "Be careful, everyone!" Mo Hai hurriedly exclaimed when he saw their approach. "The dark rain corrosive poison can seep into the blood and under the bones. It will gradually corrode a person's bones and blood and cause their internal organs to melt into a pool of blood." Those people who wanted to move closer for a better look all shuddered at once when they heard Mo Hai's explanation. Sheng Yuan, Xiang Zai and other Gold Sun Island martial practitioners had backed away almost immediately at first notice. The Blood Fiend 10 elders had also retreated in silence after the initial surprise. For a time, the people couldn't help but look at Tang Siki and Liana with a bit more fear than they used to. "This dark rain corrosive poison is a little too vicious." Feng Rong sighed. "We've only created 3 of these blazing profound bombs with dark rain corrosive poison in order to deal with those savage people." Mo Hai pondered and explained softly. "Most blazing profound bombs only contain a rainbow miasma that will cause a martial practitioner to become delirious and hallucinate things. This will keep them from fighting effectively." That's better." Feng Rong nodded. It was at this moment Qin Lai and Zhu Li had walked up to Mo Hai. Qin Lai asked, "Is the idea to add the dark rain corrosive poison and rainbow miasma to the blazing profound bomb Senior Sister Tang and Senior Sister Liana's idea?" Mo Hai's expression was calm. "Siki is well versed in artifact forging, while Littler has a unique understanding towards poisonous substances. They worked together to put toxin into the blazing profound bomb." Qin Lai looked at his surroundings. He noticed that the window sills of the stone buildings nearby were all stacked with a large amount of resources. These resources included all kinds of spirit materials. Some of them were Gold Sun Island's old stash, and some of them had been recently looted from Black Cloud Palace and Heavenly Sword Mountain. After Gold Sun Island and Blood Fiend Sect recognized the value in Tangsiki and Mohai's artifact forging, they immediately arranged for the two of them to receive all the resources they might need, if possible. One could say that the resources Mohai and Tangsiki were enjoying on Gold Sun Island far exceeded what they had back at Armament Sect. After all, Armament Sect was just a Black Iron rank force on Scarlet Tide Continent. They were lacking in a lot of precious spirit materials, and there was no guarantee that the spirit materials would always be available. Gold Sun Island, as a copper rank force, and Blood Fiend Sect both had some accumulated resources. Adding that to the humongous amount of resources they'd just recently robbed from Black Cloud Palace and Heavenly Sea Pavilion, Mohai, Tangsiki, and Liana were guaranteed to have their hands full with all kinds of resources. That was why some of the ideas they used to entertain themselves only in their imagination were naturally brought to existence under their hard work. The blazing profound bombs and that rare spirit armor was just a natural product of success. Elder Mo, how many blazing profound bombs have you created as of now? Zhu Li also asked with a respectful tone. As of now, we've created over 50 blazing profound bombs. Among them, there are 20 or so that contain the rainbow miasma, while the rest are normal blazing profound bombs. Mohai explained calmly, we haven't started on that type of spirit armor yet. If Setting Sun Islands can survive this trial, then we will be able to refine them in great numbers. However, we are still lacking manpower. Scarlet Tide Continent's Armament Sect exists only in name, and now the teleportation formation connecting to the ultimate blood ground has already been constructed. Qin Lai rubbed his chin and pondered for a moment. Then, he said, once we've survived Black Voodoo Cult and the Three Great Families invasion, I believe we can return directly to Scarlet Tide Continent through the ultimate blood ground. When that time comes, we will do our best to call those inner sect disciples of the former Armament Sect over. We may think of this as an extension of Armament Sect's legacy. Zhu Li's eyes lit up. It was a good thing for any force to possess a group of useful artificers to themselves. If these artificers were very skilled in artifact forging, then the sect's combat power would be greatly increased. By absorbing the inner sect disciples of the former Armament Sect and creating an extraordinary artifact forging force in Setting Sun Islands, they would be a great boon to Blood Fiend Sect's future. Those inner sect disciples are probably not doing so well in Scarlet Tide Continent right now. It would be best if we could take them in. Mohai agreed wholeheartedly. For now, please forge more blazing profound bombs. Those spirit armors can wait for now, Zhu Li said. Mohai nodded in understanding. Elder Zhu, please save up 3 ancient elite remains for Jiaoyu. You may take the rest of them and find those suitable to receive their inheritances, Qin Lai said. All right. Zhu Li looked moved.